Hi, this is Dr. Swanberg. I wanted to take a few minutes to go over the handouts for this week. I'm going to start with the overview for the poetry theme essay because you're working on a draft this week. So just real quickly, it's a minimum of 5 paragraphs. It may be more than that. The essay must have these elements: a thesis paragraph, 3 body paragraphs, and a concluding paragraph. All paragraphs should be at least 10 sentences in length. It must be a minimum of 750 words. It should be more than that. Students who write this paper tend to find that it can even be over 1,000 words, and that's okay too. There is not a maximum limit, just a minimum limit. Students must use 3 separate poems for this essay. You should be choosing those poems from the poems I provided in the course readings. You must devote at least 1 full paragraph to each poem. Those are your body paragraphs. Students must use at least 2 authors for this essay. You may not use 3 poems all by the same poet, so at least 2 authors. Students must quote directly at least 3 times from each poem. So when you're writing a source paragraph, it's going to be all about one poem, but you're going to use that poem 3 times. Keep individual quotes short and put your analysis between quotes. Do not quote more than 4 lines of poetry at once unless they are very, very short lines like in the Red Wheelbarrow. Students must provide in-text citations for every quote. So every time there's a sentence where there's a quote, you should put a citation at the end of that sentence. Don't put it at the end of the quote if the sentence continues. You don't want to interrupt your thought with a citation, but it goes at the end of the sentence. Don't save them all up and do one at the end of the paragraph. It goes after each sentence that has a quote in it. Students must use a slash to indicate where the line breaks in the original poems fall. So much depends / upon. So don't forget to do that. There was a tutorial on that in last week's work. Students must include a works cited list at the end of their essay. So you should have 3 entries in this works cited list, 1 for each of the poems that you used. The essay should be carefully edited for spelling, grammar, capitalization, punctuation, spacing, and format. And please remember that this is a close reading. That means you should not be bringing in any sources other than the poems themselves. You do not need help from the internet to read these poems. You have help from me reading these poems. So if you need help understanding the poems, go back and re-watch the videos where I go over those with you. Okay, so make sure that you are using the poems, quoting and citing the poems, and no other sources, just the poems this time. We'll get into research next time. You're not looking forward to it, trust me. All right, so that's that handout. The next handout is theme versus thesis. And I wanted to talk to you about this real briefly. A theme is, of course, any idea that runs through a work, like racism or loss of a loved one or poverty or taking chances, right? So these are the themes that you've been observing and working on so far. A thesis statement, however, is something that requires arguing, where somebody might not agree with you right away. So I've put some examples here of wanting you to push until somebody might say, hey, wait a second, no, I disagree with that. When you think to yourself, hey, she might not agree with this, I don't know, maybe this might even offend her, then you've got a good thesis. I want you to push for that time where you're realizing, okay, now I've got an argument on my hands, okay? You want to try to avoid the water is wet statements that are like, you know, losing a loved one makes you really sad, or poverty stinks, or things like that. We know that. That's a given. Nobody is going to argue with you that racism hurts people and makes their lives worse or anything like that. We want to kind of move even beyond those observations to something that we can argue. So let's take a look at the first one here, and then I'll let you read the rest and study the rest on your own. But the theme statement, and this is a common one for this group of poems because they are by African-American poets who are writing about the racism they have experienced. So it's a common theme to choose. And you might say, these 3 poets all discuss the effect of racism on people. That's absolutely true. You might even move to an observation that says, racism is bad and it hurts people, it's upsetting, it's offensive. Yes, all those things are true. But we want to move all the way to something that you can argue with. And here I have purposefully chosen something that I think you might argue with. These three poets all discuss how racism makes its victims angry enough to be violent. Now, I myself could argue with this. I have known people who have been the victims of racism many times in their lives, and they are still dedicated pacifists and very gentle people. But our poems certainly do show this, right? Gwendolyn Brooks's poem, The Riot, absolutely shows this. You could argue that Langston Hughes's poem shows this when he says that a dream deferred might explode, right? So you can make that argument using the poem, and yet other people may disagree with you and say, well, no, it doesn't make you violent. That's insulting. So you want that argument. You want something where somebody can object to it and argue with it, and then you want to back up the statement that you're arguing with evidence from the text. So we want to, again, move beyond theme to thesis. And that's how you do it, and using that handout. Now, the last handout that we need to really think about for this week is the works cited list. And again, you are going to have 3 entries in this works cited list, 1 for each poem. You place them at the end of your draft. So you write your essay and then you put your works cited list. It will look like this. It'll say works cited list at the top, and then it will have 3 authors' names, 3 poets' names here, and then 3 entries. I'm going to go over with you what those entries should look like, okay? So I'm actually going to enable editing so I can show you a few things here. You can go to this link and it shows you the same things that I'm showing you here. This is where I got this information. I always work with a pattern. I don't go off-roading when it comes to works cited lists. They are too picky. So the entries should include these 6 elements: the author's name, the poem title in quotation marks, the website title in italics. Now remember, that's not the URL or the web address. So if it says Poem Hunter, all one word, poemhunter.com, you need to change that to Poem Hunter, okay? So the website title in italics. The date the poem was posted in day, month, year order, and with the month abbreviated to 3 letters. The only month we don't abbreviate to 3 letters is May, because it's already 3 letters. All right, the publication medium is web, and you'll see one of these has forgotten it, and I'll show you what it looks like when we add it. And the date you accessed the poem formatted in the same way. MLA does not require the use of URLs or web addresses because they could be broken next week. So we do it this way. Then we alphabetize the entire works cited list by the poet's last name. If you have 2 poems by Robert Frost, then you would put Fire and Ice in front of the Road Not Taken. Because F comes before R. So if you have 2 by the same poet, you alphabetize by the first significant word in the title. Okay, so I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to show you the hanging indents as well. So Frost, comma, Robert, period. Space, quotation mark, title, period, quotation mark. Notice that the period goes inside the quotation marks. Then you have your website title, and remember to format it as a title, not as a website, if you can manage it. There is no period at the end of that section, and there is one here, so I will remove it. Okay, 18 August 2014 is the day that they published Fire and Ice on Poem Hunter. It's from the web, and I looked at it last on February of 2020. So here's this other one. Let me correct a few things. There was a period there when there should not have been, and it leaves out the word web. So I'm going to put that in there. Now look, that made a mess of my formatting. So I want to show you how to format it with that hanging indent. Make sure everything you have is correct. Every period, every comma, every space, every quotation mark, every capital letter in the title, etc., etc. And then put your cursor at the end. And just hit enter and tab, and that will get that hanging indent that you're looking for. It may screw up your formatting if you copy and paste into Blackboard. And that leads me to the last thing I'm going to show you today. which is how to go to a Google document and save it as, I don't want to save this, to go to a Google document and save it as something that you can upload into Blackboard. Okay, so let's go to Google Documents. And where's mine? Let me go to my Google Documents. That'll be a whole lot easier. Go to my Google Documents. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open this. This is just an untitled document. And what you want to do if you want to save this as a file that I can read through Blackboard is you go to File and you go to Download and you choose either Microsoft Word or PDF. Okay, and then you do a Save As. So you would go ahead and do Microsoft Word, and then you would click Save the file, and then you would upload that file that you saved into Blackboard. You can also do it as a PDF if you don't have Word on your computer and you can't manage it as a file. So you can do it as a PDF as well. Either is fine for uploading into the draft assignment. All right, so you have a quiz this week on theme versus thesis and the works cited list. You have a practice so that I can help you with it. I want to remind you of something. I'm going to go in here. When you're looking for your feedback here, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be replying to you each. I'm going to cancel it for now because I haven't read this. So it's going to look like, see, this person has a reply already from Charday, which is fantastic, but they're going to have a reply from me as well. When you go through and look for my responses, I'd like you to look for my responses to everybody and really engage with what everyone put up here and look at the advice that I've given because I'm going to be going through and giving people corrections. Don't get sad if I've corrected you, and it's there to help everyone, okay? So make sure that you have done those things. If you've done yours before I went over this works cited list for you in this video, feel free to go back and edit your discussion board or even post it in a comment and do another one and update it. That's fine as well. The works cited list discussion board is very much a workshop. And if you engage with it more than once in a week and improve your work, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. All right, I'm going to wrap this up for the week and let me know, reach out, come to a help session if you need help.